Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
Today on Rainbow Country, Olympic champion, LGBT advocate, and leader Mark Tewksbury is my guest. That and so much more in episode 274, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Harder, porn star, burlesque performer, and the creator of Porn to Be a Star. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT-FM in Toronto, the sound of your city, and now proudly in syndication on 11 outlets across Canada. So whether you're listening in the Yukon, to British Columbia, to the prairies, to the east coast of Canada in the Maritimes, to Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a number 1 LGBT podcast, and a top 100 LGBT podcast to follow. So today, he is an Olympic champion, an LGBT advocate, and along with fellow Olympian Debbie Muir, together they offer a high-performance leadership program called the Great Traits Corporate Champions Program. We'll find out all about the Great Traits program, his Olympic journey, and so much more. Plus, as always, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house, and on this episode, I'm featuring a 3-song Canadian disco set with Lime, a 3-song set featuring Canadian iconic a cappella group, the Nylons, as well as American trans artist, Rye Daisies, and Canadian LGBT folk artist, Kendall Partington. But up first, Rainbow Country contributor, musician, and activist Anna Goodmanis talks about queer veterans and the LGBT Purge.
November marks Remembrance Day, and I began to wonder how queer veterans are doing in 2021. A bit of online research revealed the answer. They're still suffering. Most of you have probably heard of the LGBT Purge, in which LGBT members of the Canadian Armed Forces, the RCMP, and Canada's Public Service endured systematic discrimination, harassment, and job termination between the 1950s and 1990s. In 2016, survivors launched a class action lawsuit against the Canadian government, reaching a settlement 2 years later. Thus, the LGBT Purge Fund was born. Over the course of 2021, the fund launched an oral history project on YouTube called Survivor Stories. I would highly recommend taking an hour to watch and listen to these extremely moving testimonials on or around Remembrance Day. Survivors recall everything from lack of respect and job advancement, to violent interrogations by military police, to rape perpetrated by fellow military members. One woman had to testify on behalf of her deceased uncle, who was dismissed from the RCMP in 1964 despite being a Queen's Coronation Medal recipient. His and all other survivors' lives were never the same after their dismissals, and several survivors talk about being homeless afterward. This, to me, is crucial information in the fight against LGBTQ homelessness. There is plenty of information available on LGBTQ youth homelessness, and also lots on veteran homelessness. But for LGBTQ vets, this is the first research that links the homophobic violence they experienced in the military to their subsequent homelessness. Think of it this way. The next homeless person you encounter on the street could in fact be an LGBTQ vet suffering from severe PTSD, the result of both war trauma and the trauma of deeply entrenched queerphobia in the military. The LGBT Purge Fund also issued a report in May of this year entitled Emerging from the Purge. Among these recommendations is the need to equip Pride Network employee resource groups with sustaining resources that support success. It turns out that the study and report were actually paid for by the victims of the LGBT purge, not the government. As the fund's executive director, Michelle Douglas, wrote to the Prime Minister, quote, "It is a sad reality that once again, the responsibility to advocate for and call for culture change comes from those who experienced discrimination and injustice," unquote. So let's all learn more about the reality of LGBTQ veterans and pledge to support and advocate for them. This is singer-songwriter and activist Anna Gutmanis for Rainbow Country. You can reach me at annagutmanis.com.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
Hi, I'm Saida Garrett, co-writer of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mr. Mark Tara.
Up next, Olympic champion Mark Tewksbury.
And now, the hopes of Canada, the man from Calgary, a 24-year-old. He says he is a player now.
Representing Canada,
Mark Tewksbury. Por la calle 6.
In lane 6, Zubero is in the building.
Lane 1's at the bottom of the picture, so Tewksbury is the 5th one up. He's not wearing a bathing cap. Jeff Rouse, the world record holder, is this side of him. The Spaniard Zubero is on the other side on the top, lane number 6. It's 2 lengths of the pool. Jeff Rouse has a phenomenal start in lane 4. Mark will be behind and have to play catch-up.
Mark flings himself. The swimmers can stay in for 15 meters. Let's see who pops up first. It is Rouse. Tewksbury's got himself a good start. He likes to play catch-up. He has to because of the start that Rouse has. World record is 53.93. The split is 25.90. Let's watch as they get to the first turn. 50 meters into the 100-meter backstroke.
Mark looks very good right now. He's made up almost all of that ground. He touches in second place. He's ahead of the other American. A little bit weak off the turn there, as you notice. Again, Rouse has phenomenal turning ability. He's out in front. Mark has to play catch-up again, but he's good at that. He's got to pick it up right now.
Here we are, 25 meters left. The men's 100-meter backstroke. It is between Rouse and Tewksbury. Here comes Mark Tewksbury to the final 5 meters. Rouse and Tewksbury. It's going to go to the wall, and on the wall, There it is! He's done it! Olympic record! The dream lives!
Mark Tewksbury, hi, how are you?
I'm great, Mark. How are you?
I am well. It is a pleasure to chat with you, to talk with you, even if it's virtually. So thank you for being here, to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. I want to get your thoughts on something that recently happened. The 2020 Summer Olympics that happened in Tokyo happened in 2021. What are your thoughts on these pandemic games that just happened?
Well, that's a very good, far-reaching question. I mean, if I'm just generally speaking, it was quite something that had happened. I was part of I'm the vice president now of the Canadian Olympic Committee. So our job is to field the team and get them over there safely and get them back home. And obviously with the postponement, there are a lot of question marks. So quite thrilled that the games happened, that Team Canada performed so well, which I'm still scratching my head. Like, how did these amazing athletes that didn't have access to facilities for so many months break world records and do their personal best? It was really incredible to watch. From a LGBTQ plus point of view, it was a huge breakthrough games. I mean, Team LGBTQ became a thing. Like, mainstream press was talking about it as a team. I think we would have placed 7th in the medal standings. There were 180 plus athletes that were out. So it was a big breakthrough for our community at the Tokyo Olympics for sure.
Had these games been a regular games, would you have gone?
I would have, yes, for sure. I would have been there.
And how many Olympics would that have been, like, for you attending?
I think it's 10 or 11. I was a swimmer in 2. I was a guest of the International Olympic Committee at 1. I was the chef de mission for 1. I've been with the press for 3. I've been to quite a few.
Wow. Does it ever get old?
No, there's something magic, and I'm hooked, right? I bought into the movement when I was 8 years old, and it's like a renewal every time, because it's almost better as you get older. And in a role like the chef de mission, I'm the head of the Olympic team. So instead of just me competing every single competition I get to go to and get that exhilarating feeling of cheering for people.
You just mentioned it in 2012. You were the chef de mission.
Mission, yeah, it's a French term. For
the London Games. First of all, what does that entail?
Well, I'm really the Canada's chief delegate to representing our country at the Olympics. So technically, like, anything that happens to Canada, if there's a security breach, RCMP are involved, anything to do with an athlete or a member of the mission team, I'm the person that gets the call and have to deal with sort of the behind the scenes. I'm also there as a cheerleader, ambassador, a mentor to the athletes. We do it differently in Canada. It's a very bureaucratic heavy role, administrative heavy. But we've chosen to put a former Olympian in there, usually a higher profile Olympian, just to rally the team and to unite all these different sports under the Team Canada banner as we head over to the games, because the Olympics are really interesting. Each sport has its own qualifiers. You're only named to the Olympic team about a week before the games start, and the day after, the team is disassembled. So it's a very small window, and you have to do something kind of magical to break down the silos between all the sports, and having a high-profile Olympian in that role of chef de mission has been very effective for us.
So in 2022, in just a few months, there will be the Winter Games, the Beijing Winter Games. Are you looking forward to those?
Of course, yeah, but it does make me scratch my head and go, wow. But this is a little bit reminiscent of when I grew up, because when I was a kid, the Olympics summer and winter used to be held in the same year. That was all the way through till 1992, and then they changed, they staggered. And so the next Winter Olympic Games went to 1994, and they started their new 4-year cycle. So we got into that Olympics every 2 years, but this used to be the norm, but it's pretty overwhelming to have to, again, do that behind the scenes. So now that I'm on the board of the Olympic Committee, I have a firsthand experience and view of all that it takes. And Beijing is going to be a fantastic games, but complicated. And, the environment politically is really challenging. But yeah, and we're still in COVID, right? That the world is not out of this. So there's a lot of things that, just like Tokyo, are going to come into play for Beijing.
So, for his athletic excellence, sport leadership, championing equity, inclusion, and human rights, both on and off the field, on November 27th, 2020, you received the Order of Canada. Congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I was made a companion. That's actually the highest rank within the order. There's only 165 living Canadians at any time can be a companion. So not only into the Order of Canada, but I didn't realize there were different ranks, and they really gave me the most incredible honor by making me companion.
And how does that feel?
It felt beautiful. It felt really, I don't know, my whole life has been kind of not anti, but the road less traveled. Mm-hmm. I had to often leave institutions and hold a light to them and, come out or do something to kind of raise awareness to issues. And it wasn't a very logical path to being recognized by the crown or your country. But it's pretty cool that in 2021 or 2020 that happened. And I think I'm one of the few people in there that's openly gay and recognized for my work as a sportsman and, of course, as a human rights activist. So it's really nice. It was very, very touching. I cried a lot, I have to be honest. I just kind of, because it was such a shock. Like, I kind of...
How did you find out?
They call. So the Rideau Hall calls, and you have to accept. It's very formal. Mm-hmm. But I'm 53. So, a lot of people much younger than I have gotten the Order of Canada. And so I kind of thought maybe I'd never get the Order of Canada. It was just one of those things. I didn't get it. And then to get it and learn about the companion and get the companion, it's like, what? It's like, it's so, I guess it was worth the wait.
And so is there a difference between the Order of Canada and the companion?
Yeah. So the Order of Canada has 3 ranks within it. If you're a member, if you're a member, there's been about 4,500 members in Canada's history since 1967. The next rank is an officer, and there's been about 2,000 officers since 1967. And then the highest rank is companion. And as I said, you can only have 165 living Canadians at any one time. And there's probably been less than about 500 in our whole history. So I'm the only Summer Olympian except for Dick Pound that's in there. So it's like, what? So yeah, most people don't know. And the way you can tell is the post-nominal. So you'll see people with letters after their name. CM is a member, OC is officer, and CC is companion. The other way is, you'll notice I'm wearing, for your listeners.
I see you wearing your pin.
You'll have a snowflake-looking pin that's on a lapel or the left side of somebody's clothing. And that usually is the Order of Canada. And within it, there's a maple leaf. And if the maple leaf is silver, the person's a member. If it's gold, the person's an officer. And in my case, I've got a red maple leaf, and the red represents the companions.
Wow.
Yeah. So most people have no idea about that. I myself, until I became a part of the Order of Canada, was not aware of all of this either. So kind of my mission to educate people a little bit.
Well, thank you for educating me.
Pleasure.
So you got this in 2020. COVID is happening. Still happening. Was there a ceremony?
No, so there hasn't been yet. And there wasn't even a Governor General for quite a while. So yeah, usually it takes, I think, about 9 months to have your investiture ceremony. So I don't know, probably early 2022, I'm guessing, given what we're going through with Wave 4 now.
How has it been for you dealing with COVID-19, a global pandemic?
Well, listen, I mean, I'm a person and I'm affected in really direct ways in my business. I had to completely pivot and go to virtual and online, which in the end, I mean, it was kind of hard at first, but in the end, it's very manageable and it's doable. And it's actually, for my business, which is teaching leadership, it's actually better. It works. It's better for incremental learning. Travel was a huge part of my life. I literally traveled almost every week across the country. And so that was kind of a shock, but I've made the most out of it. I think I needed maybe a bit of a break from that pace. And so I settled in. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. It's a very manageable city to live in. I've enjoyed it very much. I discovered the bike paths, and my partner and I, we were a little worried because I traveled a lot, so that's always absence makes the heart go fonder. You can't miss me if I don't go away, and so it could have gone either way. But thankfully, we've got along terrifically through the pandemic, and been there. My brother and sister were both more on the front line, essential workers in pharma, working in a pharmacy and food and beverage industry. So really supporting them and watching them have to go out and wear a mask all day. And I had the luxury, at least, of working from home.
You are known as an Olympic champion. Now a recipient of the Order of Canada, companion. You're also known as a public speaker and as a coach. Yourself and Debbie Muir, who is a silver medalist in synchronized swimming at the 1971 Pan Am Games, the two of you have created the Great Traits Corporate Champions Program. Talk to me about this.
Well, it's super. It's like one of the most unique leadership training programs in the world, I think. And the reason I say that, it's unique for a bunch of different reasons. One is we look at this notion of leadership from 3 different points of view with 3 different courses of action. So how to lead yourself, how to lead others, and then for ongoing success. So those 3 things come together. We also train leadership like we train athletes to win the Olympics. And we really realize that the pursuit of athlete success and the pursuit of business success are incredibly similar. And they center around the pursuit of high performance, of getting better results, of improvement, of betterment. And so instead of training leadership, we train people in the traits of high performance. And after 12 weeks of going through our fairly rigorous, very simple, but very action-oriented, rigorous program, people emerge as leaders that can literally tackle any challenge that's thrown at them. But we need them for 12 weeks, for 3 months. And that's where the learning and the magic happens.
And is this part of the Olympic Committee at all or anything like that?
No, this is my business. So this is how I earn my living. All of the Olympic stuff, it's all volunteer. So that I get to do for free. But certainly, I mean, my Olympic experience, Debbie was my coach. She kind of developed this framework in a way and then transferred it to my sport and then transferred it to other sports and then other businesses. So it's been really exciting. I mean, I think this is really homage to Debbie and her real insight and her ability to just get the best out of people. So it's really nice to be part of the business with her. We've been together for over 30 years as friends, colleagues, and now business owners.
Do you think that at some point this program will be able to be accessed by regular people, like just the average Joe wanting to improve themselves? Absolutely.
Yeah. Right now it's I'd call it maybe a bit of a boutique product because there's only so many classes every year. It has to be done at certain launch dates, but we're going to fully digitize what we're doing in the upcoming year. And so that people can start this journey, their 12 weeks, whenever they would like. Won't be quite the same. It'll be a slightly different version, but absolutely the learning will all be the same. And the pathway that you'll follow, the framework will still be the same.
I can see this being something that you guys offer on PBS. You know how they have those programs that, self-improvement.
Even better, we'll do it on YouTube. That's the new PBS.
True. So let's dive into the pool. So Commonwealth Games champion, Pan-Pacific champion, world champion, Olympic champion, 2 Olympic Games, 1988, 1992. Here's the question. When did you first discover swimming?
So I started swimming when I was about 5 because my parents lived in Dallas. We were transferred from Calgary. My dad worked for an oil company as a junior accountant. And then I watched the 76 Olympics on TV and I was 8 years old. And we had the kind of success that, we've seen in Rio and Tokyo with the Canadian swimmers, lots of medals. So I got really excited. And that's when I joined a swimming club. And when I was about 10 to 12, I started to show real promise. Then from about 12 to 15, I struggled a bit with hormones and growing, et cetera. And then I kind of found my way again and made the junior national team by the time I was 16, and the rest became history.
Mm. Well, in 1988, at the Seoul Summer Olympics, you won silver in the 4x100 meter medley, your first Olympic Games.
Medley relay.
The medley relay. Mm-hmm. When you were at your first games in 1988, what were those games like for you?
They were very overwhelming. I had never been, the idea of going to like see an Olympic city before you compete there is actually more of a current idea. Back then, I'd never been to South Korea. I'd never been to Seoul. So just being in that completely different climate of Asia was, first of all, surprising. And the Olympic Village is, especially in the summer, it's quite extraordinary. It is literally like a city within the city. And you're surrounded by, thousands of the world's best athlete specimens from all different countries and shapes and sizes, depending on the sport. And I was just incredibly distracted. I was just kind of, and I did not have a great Olympic, I had a good Olympic experience. I didn't have a good Olympic swimming experience. I really soaked in all the Olympics, but yeah, it was overwhelming and distracting. And so that was great, though. When I went to my second Olympics in Barcelona, that did not happen. First of all, I went to see Barcelona, the city, early. I felt very comfortable in that city, which was, I think, a really good omen. Just as a side note, I continue to go to Barcelona to this day for holiday. So it had nothing to do with winning the Olympics. I even forget that I won the Olympics there. I've been so many times for holiday. So I was able to really change that first experience to the second one.
So back in 88, was there a plan, whether it was maybe it was verbalized or whether it was maybe in your mind, was there a long-term plan that this 88 was going to be your first games, but you were going to go to 92 as well?
No. I was a medal favorite tracking before 88. There was this real huge innovation in my sport. An underwater dolphin kick was added, and you could go as far as you wanted underwater. I was terrible at it, so I fell down the world rankings. No, I didn't even have a plan for how I was going to swim my race in the ready room right before the race. Like, I was totally lost. I just can't even say it enough, because I was sure, like the Russians and some of the great swimmers of the world would not adopt this new start because they were old school like I was. And when I got to the Olympics and I saw even the Russians swimming, the whole half a length of the pool underwater, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in so much trouble. So yeah, I had a lot of failures at that first games, and it was intended to be a success.
So those games were quite the games. There was Ben Johnson, who was your team member, Team Canada, and he won the 100 meter, but then got disqualified because he tested positive for a banned substance. Do you know Ben Johnson at all?
Not really. I mean, I was on a couple of teams with Ben, but no, I not really. But of course, his persona and who he was at that time was larger than life. He was the superstar of the team. I was just one of however many hundreds of people that went Seoul, but he was truly one of the biggest stars in the world at that time. And
what was the atmosphere like when everything sort of imploded around him, so to speak, in regards to Team Canada, 88 Team Canada?
Well, I was lucky because I was finished competing. So, I mean, I just think it would have been such a huge distraction. And I know, Debbie and the synchronized swimming team, they had to really keep their focus of attention because they came after that and remarkably won 2 gold medals with that sort of circus going on around them. But I remember when he won, I remember, being in the Olympic Village and hearing just a roar from the Canadian delegation. It happened to be the same day I swam on the relay in the evening, so I was trying to rest. And so that was exciting. And then I remember it was something like from hero to zero in 9.86 seconds. We're on sheets 2 days later when it was taken away. And it was so surprising. We thought Russians and East Germans doped, but we just were a little naive in ever holding that mirror up to ourselves.
Then there was Greg Louganis, who won 2 gold medals in that game after hitting his head on the 3-meter springboard. Do you know Greg Louganis at all?
I know him. I know Greg very well. Yeah, I got to know him over the years, especially around 2015. We were both inducted in. We both received some awards at a couple different places, actually. So our paths crossed, and it was great to get to know him.
Is it fair to say that those 92 games changed your life?
Yeah, that would be fair to say. Yeah, I mean, I like talking about something is kind of weird for me because it's not really part of my life anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wonderful that I had that early experience in my life, but I think my life's been so much more interesting even after. And I think I've been able to do more. And I think the platform of winning the Olympics probably gave me, much more amplification of messaging, and probably was one of the reasons I came out. If I wasn't an Olympic champion, I don't think people maybe would have cared as much, but it made a big statement in 1998 when I did that. So it shaped my life in so many ways.
You were also on the cover of Time magazine.
Yes, that's true. I had a line of clothing at Sears. I had a book deal with Penguin. Like it was a big deal. But in those days, it was not fun to be me. I was a closeted sport jock. My whole world was homophobic, and they didn't even know it. It's just the way of the culture, and it's boys' club, and it's homophobic slurs, and it's locker room banter, and hiding who I was it was torture. And so it's interesting when I had such big success and maybe the most access to wealth in a way, I never felt worse in my life. And so it was a great lesson for later in life, the correlation between money and success and happiness. But at the time, it was very difficult, especially feeling out of touch with my values. Like I was kind of lying and didn't have integrity, and that I couldn't be, afraid for my livelihood. And of course, wanting to still be successful financially, et cetera, and seeing what people like Greg Louganis and Martina Navratilova and even Billie Jean went through when I was like 13, 18, 20, watching them be severely punished for coming out in the public eye, receiving no endorsements or losing endorsements, et cetera. So there was a lot at play back then. It's interesting now how quickly we can forget that history. It's been just 30 years ago, but the world was a very different place.
Well, let's talk about Marc Leduc. And he was your team member, Team Canada in 92. The two of you gave an interview for CBC Radio talking about being gay, talking about homophobia in sports. This is back in 93. But the two of you gave them anonymously. You gave your interview anonymously. Talk to me about why you chose to do that.
Oh, just for all the reasons I just really said, 93. So I came out in 1998, which was still early, but 1993, there was just no space to do that. I as a human being, I wasn't ready to speak publicly, openly. But I was happy to share my experience anonymously. I was terrified, by the way. I still remember hearing they masked our voices, but I could still hear myself. And I was like, people will know it's me. I can hear myself in there. And having to change it again. And I'm still friends with the woman that was the executive producer and host of that show, two different people, Mary and Jennifer. But still that was such a significant moment for all of us. And we were really risking something, but it was a topic that needed to be talked about.
And on that note, we will return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi, I'm Keegan Hurst, former professional rugby player, coach, raving homosexual, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Canada's LGBTQ2+ archives just released Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada. Order a copy from your local bookstore to dive into hundreds of loud and proud stories and photos of historical queer life in Canada from pre-1939 to today. Get your copy from your local bookstore. Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada.
Hi, I'm writer Adam Smith, author of Deep Sniff, A History of Poppers and Queer Futures. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Now back to my one-on-one with Olympic champion Mark Tewksbury. But first up, a segment from his YouTube channel where he talks about losing a six-figure speaking deal.
Hi everyone, Mark Tewksbury here, and welcome to Queer Queries, where I will try to answer questions that sometimes even gay people don't know the answers to. So the first query out of the gate is, who is Canada's first out Olympian? No, this is not a trick question. It's me, Mark Tewksbury. I thought this would be a great place to start, especially for people who've never met me before. And just to show you I've got the proof, I recently received this great book called Proud to Play, Canadian LGBTQ plus athletes who made history. And I'm so proud to be the very first story, Canada's first out Olympic champion, Mark Tewksbury. When I was swimming, I was a closeted athlete. Thankfully, I had one mentor and coach, Debbie Muir, that I shared my secret with, and she helped me create a space that I gained the strength to reach some of the achievements that I did. But you know, I always knew there were gay athletes out there, but they tended to come into the public eye through some difficult circumstances. I remember lawsuits against Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova, and even Brian Orser here in Canada. I remember watching Greg Louganis on a talk show where he made the revelation that he was HIV positive when he hit his head on the diving board in Seoul, Korea at those 1988 Olympics. I myself never imagined I would speak so publicly about such a private matter. But in 1998, I was facing some discrimination, and I just thought enough was enough. I'd been invited to do a presentation at a big corporate showcase, and it was held in a theater. And so I arrived and I surprised everybody with my newly dyed blonde hair. And okay, maybe I bounced onto the stage to ABBA's Dancing Queen. But somebody in the audience was like, man, that guy's way too gay and I'm going to fire him from the job that I hired him for. And when I faced that discrimination, I thought, you know, I'm tired of people telling me what I can and can't say, and me feeling like I didn't have any integrity with my own self about my sexuality, and so I decided to come out.
So in 1998, you lost a six-figure motivational speaking contract. Talk to me about this.
I lost the contract because they thought I was too gay, and I wasn't openly gay yet. And so it made me go, you know what? Screw it. If I'm being punished and I'm not even out, I may as well be out. Like, why am I putting myself through the torture of hiding? Even if I'm hiding, I'm going to lose stuff. So that was that. And it was interesting. It was by another gay man. And in those days, it was like sometimes a woman would hold back another woman from the C-suite because they wanted to keep it for themselves. Sometimes gay men would discriminate against other gay people because they didn't want to be exposed for who they were. And so there was a lot of interesting dynamics going on. But I remember I was hired for some gigs, and very close friends had me for lunch and actually said to me, I'm so sorry, but with your news, we can't move forward. And it was devastating. And it did make me have to really go back to who I was. But there was such an empowerment of like losing that secret. It would take years to fully heal, and, you know, the trauma of growing up gay and all that shit going on back in those days. But it was definitely freeing. And the connectivity to who I felt as an authentic person really helped me through that time, no matter how difficult the outside financial material losses might have been.
In 2021, do you think things have gotten better, but do you think they've gotten to the place where they should be?
Oh, well, I think there's still a long way to go, but I do feel like we're living through a bit of an interesting tipping point. So I started for fun a little show called Queer Queries on the Mark Tewksbury YouTube channel, and I would tackle questions. And suddenly it was like, who is the first openly a gay NFL contracted player? Who was the first openly gay NHL contracted player? Who was the first Major League Baseball? Like, there's all these breakthroughs in sport. And in fact, when some of those players came out, their jerseys went on to be like the number one selling jerseys the following week. So I definitely think it's changed. I think the paradigm has shifted. I think that lots of brands actually love the idea of somebody being authentic and who they are. They're looking to diversify their audiences from the traditional whatever sport audience they might have had. And I think having an openly LGBTQ plus person on your team actually speaks to new people and people actually see it as a huge opportunity, not the liability it used to be seen in my era.
In 2009, Marc Leduc passed away, silver medalist at the Olympic Games. In 92, your Team Canada teammate. Did you know Marc Leduc at all?
I did as well, from that shared experience of doing the CBC radio show. So yeah, I didn't know him before. I mean, I knew him as he stood out. Boxers, there's not that many of them usually on the team, and I knew Marc from the Olympic Village. Of course, we didn't know each other. We're gay until we did the radio thing. And then I would see him around the community in Toronto for sure for many years to come.
After your Barcelona games in 92, you retired from swimming. In 2021, do you still swim?
I don't. No, I haven't really been a swimmer since 1992. Since
Really?
I stopped. Yeah, no, swimming, I like to run and bike and ski and do all sorts of other sports, but I really had swum myself out, especially smell of chlorine. So like if I'm on holiday in Barcelona or near the Mediterranean, love to swim in a body of water, a lake, an ocean. But the smell of chlorine and doing that for training, it just wasn't something that really ever appealed to me. Lots of my teammates are still swimming masters, but that just wasn't my trajectory at all.
So we will never see Mark Tewksbury near a pool.
Not anytime soon, unless I'm suntanning.
You were mentioning this earlier, but in May 2021, you were elected for a 2-year term as vice president for the board of the Canadian Olympic Committee. Is that something that you were looking for, you wanted to pursue, or is it something that just fell in your lap and you're like, hey, sure, fine, why not?
Well, it was an election, so I had to consciously decide. But there was an opportunity that presented itself, and I have no political aspirations, genuinely, in sport or in Canadian life. People always ask, "You should get into politics," and I really love the way that I get to do that role as more of a informal ambassador. Every day when I leave my house, somebody will say, "Mark, are you the swimmer?" And I'll have a talk, and that's amazing, but nothing more formal. So my job is just to really support Tricia Smith, the president, and I'm happy to step up and do anything I can for that. I think I bring a lot of different unique skill sets, which is a lot of communication and team building and leadership, etc. So hopefully I'll be a benefit to the senior leadership team.
I'm sure you will be.
Thanks.
You've accomplished a lot in your life. You've made history. You've won gold medals. You're on the cover of Time magazine. But for you, what are you most proud of?
I would say my relationship with my partner, Rob, is coming up to, we're past 13 years into our 14th year. And it's just made me so happy. And I can see that I really, we just make each other's really the best we can be. And I love being able to do that for somebody and then in return feeling how I feel.
How did you guys meet?
Our lives, it's one of those kind of semi-faded things. Our lives intersected a couple of times. One when I was 24, didn't work out. He was in a relationship. Next, when I was 32, didn't work out. I wasn't living in Calgary. And then 48 years later, 3 different people in my life said, "You got to meet this guy. You got to meet this guy." And I didn't realize it was him. And we got kind of set up on a blind date, a bit reluctantly, with a friend that we share. I think he knew he was trying to keep us not together because he always wanted to have a great relationship. I think he was maybe envious of what would happen. But sure enough, we met on a Monday night, June 16th, 2008, and we've been together ever since. So it was a terrific blind date.
Wow. Wow.
It wasn't so blind. I walked in and went, oh, it's you.
Mark Tewksbury, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Keep up your great work. And hello, everybody out there. Goodbye, I guess. Hi, everyone. Mark Tewksbury here for Queer Queries, the questions sometimes even gay people don't know the answers to. This episode's query: is gay pride still relevant? Let's start by looking at what gay pride is. So for those of us living in North America, we're probably familiar with pride being a week-long, month-long celebration of events that culminates in some kind of parade. In other parts of the world, gay pride represents a march or a protest for basic human rights. And it's really important to remember that there's sort of two ends of that spectrum. And even the celebration that we know today started as a protest and a march for basic human rights. So pride is actually an acronym. I learned this getting ready for this episode. It stands for Personal Rights in Defense and Education. It was the name of a gay political activist group founded in 1966 by Steve Ginsburg in Los Angeles. And it shows there are lots of activism and things happening for the gay liberation in 1965, 66, 67. But pride as we know it today was really born in 1969. So in the early hours of June 28th, at the Stonewall Inn, a bar on Christopher Street in Greenwich Village, the police raided. And police have been raiding bars throughout that time in our history. But that particular night, the patrons, drag queens, trans people, people of color, fought back. Enough was enough. And that began 2 nights of rioting, which became known as the Stonewall Riots, a pivotal moment in 2S LGBTQ history around the world. I was there in 2019 for the 50th anniversary, standing right in front of the Stonewall Inn. Millions of people on the street, and to think that all of us had this liberation because a few people were brave enough to raise their voices. Pride is still very relevant. Unfortunately, there's 69 countries in the world today where it's illegal to be part of the 2S LGBTQ+ community. We may have amazing celebrations in cities like London and New York and Toronto, but in places like St. Petersburg or somewhere in the Middle East, there'll be a quick pop-up of 20, 30 people protesting for their rights before they're afraid police will find them and potentially put them in jail. Pride means a lot of things to different people. I know many of you are allies, so I'm curious, my query to you this week, what does pride mean to you? Please comment or like, and don't forget to subscribe to the Mark Tewksbury YouTube channel.
For more on the Great Traits Corporate Champions program, the Mark Tewksbury YouTube channel, and even more on this Olympic champion, simply visit marktewksbury.org.
Hi, I'm Cameron Bailey, Artistic Director and Co-Head of TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us, and of course our artists and the things that we do globally, and talk about culture. And without people like Mark Tara providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Mark Tewksbury, Olympic champion, leader, humanitarian. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, just head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, make sure you follow me on socials at Mark Tara Music. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, stay well, stay strong, and stay safe.